Tonight, tragedy and horror at the shooting range near Las Vegas. A 9-year-old girl firing an Uzi loses control of the weapon and accidentally fires a round at her instructor, killing him. It was all caught on tape. So, this deadly accident begs this question. Should a child ever be allowed to shoot such a powerful weapon at all?
Well, a 9-year-old girl ended up accidentally killing her gun instructor.
He was accidentally shot by that girl holding an automatic Uzi.
All right, go ahead and give me one shot.
Really don't know what happened.
The 9-year-old's Uzi kicks back, and a bullet is fired into Vaca.
To put an Uzi in the hands of a 9-year-old, I think is extremely reckless.
All the customers have been talking about it.
A 9-year-old with an Uzi, question mark?
Now, here's the 9-year-old girl who police are not identifying with the 39-year-old instructor, Charles Vaca. Police released this video of the moments just before the deadly shot rang out. The clip ends before Vaca is hit. Look at this.
Okay, turn this leg forward. There you go, just like that. All right, go ahead and give me one shot. All right.
The girl fired several rounds in rapid succession before the recoil lifted the gun over her head and she lost control. Vaca was struck in the head and died only hours later. Police are not filing any charges. Now, this is not a story about gun control. Instead, it's a cautionary tale about common sense. What say you? We want to hear from you. That 9-year-old would be better off at the playground not shooting a fully semi-automatic submachine gun. I want to hear from you now. Call me at 1-877-JVM-SAYS. That's 1-877-586-7297. And please join the conversation by going to our Facebook page. You can also talk to us on Twitter. I want to go straight out to the lines then. Now, of course, our hearts certainly go out to Charles Vaca's family as well as the girl and her family. But you know what? What a serious tragedy. We have a gun expert standing at the ready. Let's talk to the gun expert, Samuel Hayes. Talk to us about this weapon, how the weapon is structured, and is it safe for a 9-year-old to be in possession of it?
Absolutely not. I mean, it's never safe for a 9-year-old to be in possession of a fully automatic weapon. I know some adults that I wouldn't put a fully automatic weapon in their hands without some kind of specific training. And let's be clear, this is not an accident. Although it may have been an accident that she shot him, this is a result of negligence. And as a result of that negligence, two families are devastated now. There was negligence on the part of the gun range to have a policy that would allow an 8-year-old child to be in possession of a fully automatic weapon. And unfortunately, I hate to speak ill of the dead, but it was negligent on his part as an instructor to not have full control of that weapon even while she was shooting it. I mean,
we're going to certainly get into that without question. We have C.W. Jensen. You're there. You're a retired officer. Talk to us about that. Now, it seems to me that our firearm expert, Mr. Hayes, raises a very good point. Do you disagree?
No, I agree with him 100%. You know, I don't have a problem with a kid learning to firearms, and I don't know if he has a gun there, but this is a Glock 26. It's a semi-automatic pistol, right? So semi-automatic and automatic, I think it's important for your viewers to understand. So this is a semi-automatic. Let's say I load it, I lock it, now it's loaded. I can fire once, and it takes the hammer down, and then I can fire very, very fast. Bam, 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 bam. The difference between this and an automatic is, and I think this is what happened to the little girl.
Okay.
You pull this, you have to pull each time. An automatic, it just goes brrrr, and it's gone.
But it would seem to me that certainly the firearm instructor would be on notice of that. But let's be clear. The victim appeared to be doing everything by the book. He was standing right over the girl with his hands right on her back and arm. But still, all precautions could not prevent this horrible tragedy. Look at this.
Really don't know what happened. I mean, our guys are trained to basically hover over people when they're shooting. And you know, if they're shooting right-handed, we have our right hand behind them ready to push the weapon out of the way, and if they're left-handed, the same thing.
Now, just to be clear, I'm certainly no firearms or weapons expert, but just look at how petite this girl is. It would seem that the force of the recoil would be a major consideration in deciding whether a child should even be allowed to possess such a firearm or be even at a range. It's a powerful weapon, is it not, Samuel Hayes?
Absolutely, it's a powerful weapon, and that's where I disagree that having the instructor having his hands on the actual person. He should have had one hand on her back and another hand on the actual gun to be able to control the recoil. In the event that he felt the gun moving in a direction that was unsafe, then his hand would have been right there on the firearm to be able to take the gun from her or at least control the direction of fire, and it wouldn't have been able to come back towards him. And I mean, this is a 9-year-old girl. We're looking at the physicality of a 9-year-old girl who is, I mean, she basically has a series of mechanical parts in her hand that when you press the trigger, you're causing multiple explosions at the end of her hand. That's going to be extremely jarring to anybody if they're a first-time shooter. There's no way in the world I would ever put a fully automatic.
Let me say this.
The issue here, Joey, is that parents have a constitutional right to impart whatever type of values they want to on their child. This was perfectly legal.
We're not talking about values. We're talking about common sense.
It's important.
Samuel,
it's
you'll get your opportunity. Go ahead, Evangeline.
Because parents have a constitutional right, and if they want to teach a child or they want their child to go out to a gun range, they have that prerogative. Nothing that occurred here was illegal. You had parental consent. You had an instructor who was there. This was an unfortunate accident, but guess what? Our world is not perfect, and things like this happen, and nobody would be giving this case scrutiny if this accident would not have occurred.
Now, Evangeline, Samuel, hold on one second. Evangeline, I want to take this to you and the rest of the panel because I want to be clear about this. You talk about 9-year-old. Listen to this. The firing range, which is called Bullets and Burgers, says on its website that any child between the ages of 8 and 17 can shoot a weapon, even if accompanied, right, by a parent or guardian. They have to be accompanied, we know that. But according to the person who runs that place, 8-year-olds even are not their youngest customers. Take a look at this, and you guys can weigh in.
Well, a 9-year-old gets an Uzi in her hand when they're within the criteria as 8 years old to shoot firearms. We instruct kids as young as 5 and 22 rifles, and they don't get to handle high firearms, but they're under the supervision of their parents and of our professional range masters.
Now, I want to get Heather Hansen in on the conversation and Robbie Ludwig, but before I do, listen to this. Now, you heard him correctly, right? As young as 5 years old, fire guns. 5 years old, Evangeline, and now it's not against the law, but is it safe or is it wise? And Evangeline, I hear you and I understand about people having the right to do what they want and raise their kids, but is this the proper forum to do that?
Well, I definitely think it is.
I mean, listen to what he said.
He said, if a parent agrees to it, that's their decision. There are some people who think that, hey, Pee-wee football isn't safe for kids, yet parents sign their children up for it, knowing that there's a risk that they can have a concussion, that they can suffer some other type of injury. And so while our value system may be different than somebody else's, maybe I wouldn't do this for my child, but this is the United States of America, and we have freedoms. And
Robbie Ludwig, hold on one second. Hold on, order. I got my big gavel. Robbie Ludwig, let me ask you, all right? Let me ask you, Robbie. You're the person regarding the mind and, you know, the things that parents could do, shouldn't do, would do, what's best for the child. Take us through that, because it seems to me, 9-year-old, Robbie, I thought to be young, but when I look at the clip and he says 5 years old, I'm a little taken off guard.
Right, and listen, parents can make that decision, and parents come from different cultures where, you know, shooting a gun is very natural. That's not what I take issue with. Listen, I couldn't get my kids into certain gyms because there were policies if they were below 18, it wasn't considered safe. So I take issue with a policy that doesn't protect both the teachers and the people who enter into this kind of gun range. Let's have some common sense in the policies where we're protecting kids who might be vulnerable to this kind of accident happening, because let's face it, when accidents happen with loaded guns, it can be deadly. And why would you want to lay that psychological responsibility on a child like this? Now, this 8-year-old, 9-year-old child has to live with the fact that they ended their instructor's life, even though it was an accident. That's very heavy to live with.
Absolutely. It is. Now, Heather, Heather, pivoting to you, I want you to I want you to listen to this, all right? Now, the gun that this 9-year-old was shooting, it's a fully automatic machine gun. It's created by the Israeli army. Now, the Uzi is capable, Heather, of firing 10 bullets per second at as close as 900 miles an hour. Now, take a look at this YouTube video about the Uzi safety, and we'll talk about it.
Insert into the magazine well here. I like to get a nice hard slap to make sure that magazine is seated properly. This gun has 2 safeties. The first safety is your traditional safety switch, safe and fire right here. The other safety on this gun is a lever right here that this gun will not fire unless your hand is gripping the gun properly and depressing the lever. That prevents the gun from being fired if dropped or any accidental fires. So you take your...
Now, Heather, this machine gun was designed to be shot by a soldier at war. Now, Evangeline, I get and I understand about constitutional rights and liberties and shooting, but this isn't Pee-wee football, Heather Hansen.
But the reality is, Joey, in that state of Arizona, it is legal, and it is up to the place where they're doing the shooting to decide what age the child can do it. On top of that, the important thing to note is this particular place has been open for 12 years with no citations, and as far as we know, no similar circumstances. So to say that this is something that should not be allowed because of one tragic, horrible event is not fair. There are many people who want to teach their children how to deal with firearms. They have the right to do so, and isn't it better that they do so in a place that deals with these types of things than in their own backyard?
So we're just going to forego.
Hold on. Samuel Hayes, isn't one enough? And the reality is, I get that it's legal. I get it's constitutional. I get we live in a marvelous and a beautiful society. But we're talking about a 9-year-old girl who's handling a weapon that's designed for war and was created by the Israeli army. What say you, Samuel Hayes?
I mean, basically, it sounds like everybody's saying that we should forego common sense in the interest of constitutional rights. Just because something is constitutionally right to do doesn't mean that we should do it. I have kids that come to my classes all the time with their parents, but they have to be 12 and up, and only if the parent agrees that the kid is mature enough to be able to handle the responsibilities of handling a firearm. And if we're in that class and that child does something at 12 years old and they're not being controlled by their parents, they have to leave and the parent has to go with them.
C.W. Jensen, real quick, I mean, isn't that logical?
Yeah, Mr. Johnson's absolutely logical. Every child is different. So to say, well, my kid can play hockey now, he might get his butt kicked because he's not ready. Guns are a much bigger deal than a hockey stick. So I agree with Mr. Johnson. You know, it's not a treat. It's a very serious thing.
Samuel Hayes?
And let's be clear.
Event, Great Lions Den, we're coming right back a lot more about this story and whether she should have even been possessing an Uzi with an instructor or not. Stay right there.
So like I said, it's like losing a brother. These aren't employees or associates of ours. These are family. We're all family.
All the customers have been talking about it, and it's really been breaking a lot of people's hearts because a lot of us knew him down there. It's been a rough day.
We got a Great Lions Den. They're fired up, and we're debating the issue of common sense. Someone's dead. A semi-automatic machine gun is in the hands of a 9-year-old. Should that be occurring? Before we get to the Lions Den, you're fired up. You're ready to go. I got to go to Belinda in Ohio. Thanks for calling. What's your comment?
Yeah, hi, Joey. I have 2 comments. Right, I don't understand what intelligent person would ever think that a 9-year-old child in America would have use of an Uzi. And then my other comment is, we just talked about our police being military, right? You know, being like military, and when we put an Uzi in a child's hand.
Great comments. We appreciate you, Belinda. So I got to take it out to the Lions Den, and I ask you, Evangeline, you talk about constitutional rights, constitutional liberties. What about common sense, and how does that apply to all the rights that we enjoy in this country?
First of all, Joey, this young girl was not toting an Uzi through her neighborhood or learning to shoot one in her backyard. She was in a remote area that was like a desert in a place where they have instructors, and again, she had parental consent. This would not be an issue had this unfortunate accident not happened. We wouldn't even be speaking about this on television. And common sense is not common to everybody. Different people have different definitions of common sense. There are kids who have different maturity levels, and in different parts of this country, many parents think it's okay for a child to learn to use a gun at a young age to defend themselves. This is a young girl for self-esteem.
And I understand, and you're passionate about it, and I love your argument. But Robbie Ludwig, I mean, when are you going to use an Uzi for self-defense purposes? Is this something we train our kids?
This is for entertainment.
What don't we know? Like, is she moving to Israel and we just don't have that information? Yes, there's information we obviously don't have. We don't know why the parents were thinking along the lines that this would be okay. But in looking at the video, look how tiny this girl is. It almost looks like the Uzi is bigger than she is. So, you know, that's where parents' common sense comes in. We don't want to take away anybody's Second Amendment rights or, you know, the rights of a parent who obviously can think about their child's best interest. But something went wrong here.
Joey,
something went wrong here. And
now
even if it only happened to one person.
Time out. Great Lions Den, time out. Order in the court. Heather Hansen, look, the reality is that I get and I understand, and you and Evangeline are putting forth a great argument here, but the reality is that why? Why not have her, this beautiful girl, on a playground, playing with her friends, throwing a ball back and forth, swinging on a swing set, firing an Uzi, Heather?
He's learning a new skill.
But for some people,
she could learn that skill with a 22. She could learn that skill with a 22. She doesn't have to have a fully automatic 9.
We got you. Hold on. Not yours.
For some people, this is recreation. This is the same type of recreation that you enjoy having your kids play basketball. For some people, this is recreation, and we are not going to take that away from them. In addition, it doesn't have to be black or white. There are areas of gray. This firearm place had a policy in place that served them well for 12 years. In response to this event, they have changed their policy. They now only allow children who are over 5 feet, or over, I think, 12 years of age to fire these types of firearms.
But C.W. Jensen, here's the issue, and I get, look, the policy has been changed. Why is the policy changed after someone dies? Should the policy not be in place beforehand based upon the recoil?
That's why we have
C.W.
policies.
Jensen?
Well, yeah, they know they screwed up. And what is Samuel's last name? I think I messed it up.
Hayes.
You did. It's Hayes. It's Hayes.
Right. I was thinking of Samuel Johnson.
It's all good. It's all good.
Who's that?
What he said about seeing something strange. He goes, the question isn't why it's done poorly. The question is why it's done at all. And in this case, why was it done at all for a 9-year-old?
And absolutely, I have to agree with that. And going back to you, Samuel Hayes, not Johnson, C.W. Jensen. Look, it seems as though.
I mean, look, the owner said it best. He said they have 5-year-olds in there who shoot guns all the time at 22 caliber. I agree with that wholeheartedly. The class that kids are allowed to come through that I teach, they're with 22 caliber firearms. I have never and cannot think of any good reason to put a 9mm firearm in a 9-year-old child's hands. Particularly at fully automatic. There is a substantial difference. There's a substantial difference in the recoil impulse between a 9mm firearm and a 22 caliber firearm. Had this young lady been out there exercising her Second Amendment right with a 22 caliber firearm, I would be jumping up and down in the seat like, yes, we need to teach our girls to shoot because a restraining order is just a piece of paper. But the reality is a 9mm fully automatic Uzi is absolutely positively in the hands of a 9-year-old. Preposterous.
It's an outrage. Absolutely. Preposterous, outrageous, a whole bunch of other things. Fired up Lions Den. We're coming back. A lot more to discuss about this issue. It's legal, but is it wise? Stay right there.
Video showing the final moments of instructor Charlie Vaca's life.
Right there. There you go. Just like that.
Before deputies say he was accidentally shot by that girl holding an automatic Uzi.
All right, go ahead and give me one shot.
Well, a 9-year-old gets an Uzi in her hand when they're within the criteria as 8 years old to shoot firearms. We instruct kids as young as 5 and 22 rifles, and they don't get to handle high firearms, but they're under the supervision of their parents and of our professional range masters.
9 years old, 8 years old, too young. Now, this isn't the first time that a child shooting an Uzi has met with deadly consequences. In 2008, this 8-year-old boy accidentally shot himself in the head with an Uzi. It was at a gun show in Massachusetts. Now, video of the young boy shows that he was struggling to handle the gun's recoil. The organizer of that gun show, well, he's a former police chief. Listen to this.
Do you regret that you had the gun show?
Absolutely no. Yeah, it always was meant to be an educational and event for people, and unfortunately this terrible accident happened.
Now, Lions Den, I should tell you that the organizer of the event, well, he was charged but later acquitted of involuntary manslaughter. Now, before I go to you, I know you have a lot to say, Lions Den. I want to go to Philip, who's from Massachusetts. Hi, Philip. What do you have to say?
Oh, I'm not saying too much. I'm enjoying your conversation. But I say if there was only one mistake I found seeing the tape, this is the mistake. The person involved, the little girl, should have been lying on the ground and firing it that way. Because if you're going to fire that sort of weapon, whether it be an Uzi, M16, AR-15, AK, law enforcement, even military, sometimes you get instructed to lay on your belly to fire a weapon because of possible recoil incidents like that or malfunctions like that to avoid fiascos. You know something with this girl? Maybe it's just something she wanted to do before she, you know, got a tool and say, why did I do this in my life?
You know what, Philip? You got plenty of time in your life to fire weapons. 9-year-old, I mean, she could have realized that dream a little bit later. But Samuel Hayes, let me briefly go to you. What, if anything, could the fire instructor have done differently that would have avoided this tragic accident?
He could have had his hand on the actual firearm so that if the recoil impulse showed itself to be too much for her, as it was, he would have been in control of the weapon. I mean, let's face it, the little girl wasn't the threat. The gun was the threat. So having your hands on the little girl, accomplished absolutely nothing. The little girl is not, the bullets are coming out of the end of the gun, so his hands should have been on the gun.
I got you. Dr. Robbie, I have to go to you. What about the psychological impact on the girl we haven't spoken about? How's she going to be able to get through this in her life?
I mean, she's going to have survival guilt, post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, anxiety. This could really separate her from her peers. I would recommend her going into treatment right away. But this is something she's going to have to make sense of for the rest of her life. It's going to be a burden on her. Hopefully she can turn it around, but why should she have to even deal with it in the first place? That's what's so tragic here.
Absolutely. And let me go to my constitutional libertarians. Evangeline, last comment. Have we changed your mind at all?
No.
Heather, have we changed your mind?
No, I think
unbelievable.
I want to invite Evangeline out to come to the range and let me teach you how to properly shoot an Uzi.
Well, Evangeline is good peeps. Heather is good peeps, but we're not going to change their mind. At least we're not going to tonight, okay? Even though we know we're on the right side of the argument.
Thank you, Joey.
Absolutely. Great Lions then. A lot more to discuss, but we go to yet another issue that's going to have the